Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to a new playthrough on the channel. After our game of Red Rising last week, we're going to play a very different game today. We're going to play Call to Adventure from Brotherwise Games. In this game, we're going to be building a backstory for a character, and for now I'm going to assume just a generic male human ranger, I guess. The character is largely going to be irrelevant just for identifying, except for like identifying purposes in when I go to tell the story at the end of the game, but we'll come to that point when we get to it. Speaking of the story, you might use a game like this to create a backstory for a character for a tabletop RPG campaign, like a Dungeons and Dragons kind of thing, combined with another smaller game which I might get on the channel at some point. You could use these two characters to build an entire character for that campaign. With that musing, let's start by setting up our character. This tableau where we'll be building our character actually makes our lives very easy because it shows us what each result gives us, which I'll be referencing a lot. I'll explain how everything works when we actually get into the game, but we'll start off by building our origin, our motivation, then our motivation, and our destiny. So the way that it works in this game is we get two of these dealt out, and then we get to pick one. So our first origin that we get to look at is a sailor, giving you strength and I believe that's arcane intelligence. Once per turn, when I fail a strength or intelligence challenge, I can pay 2 experience to try again, and that's what these are. At the start of the game, we'll have 3 experience, which we can spend for dark runes or to journey, but I'll explain more about that when they actually come up. And then our second card is a merchant, which gives you intelligence, and I believe that's not charisma, but I'm not sure what it... Oh, it is charisma. Once per turn, when you fail an intelligence or charisma challenge, you may pay 2 experience to try again. And once we see what we're getting into, I'm not particularly happy with either one of these. But that's something I can't really worry too much about, so I think we'll take the merchant. We'll take the intelligence and charisma runes to start with, and that's what these runes are. So those will be part of what we get to roll in any challenges that we have, but again, more on that when we get into the game. So our motivation, once again, we get to pick one. First up, driven to despair. At the beginning of the game, gain a corruption. So go down the corruption track a little bit. We start at neutral right now, where we can play either hero or anti-hero cards, and that'll affect our points at the end of the game. At the end of the game, you ignore any triumph from traits or challenges. I'm not sure I like that too much, but it does give us 7 tragedy points to start with. That's what the diamond, the black diamond up there indicates, and that could hurt us at the end of the game. But I'll talk more about that when we see what our adversary is. And our second potential motivation is a natural leader. Once per turn, you may spend an experience to gain plus the charisma until the end of the turn. And it doesn't have any extra runes on it, so I think I will actually take the natural leader. I'll leave Driven to Despair out for the time being, because I'll explain how taking that might have had a potential to hurt us in the course with our adversary. And then our Destiny, which is just a final victory point scoring at the end of the game. First possible choice. Hand of Vengeance, which gives you a scale icon. These can potentially be story icons at the end of the game. So at the end of the game, you gain 1 tragedy for each, I believe that's dexterity. Yes, it is. For each dexterity or constitution in your story, and then 1 tragedy for each tragedy in your story. Or Wise Master, which also gives us the same scale icon. At the end of the game, gain 5 triumph if you have 4 experience or more, and 1 for each. I believe that's wisdom. Yes. So both of these are good, and they're going to be looking at what... And they're both going to be rune. Each of them has a type of rune that we're going to be looking for during the story. So the question is, which one do I think is going to make a better story? I think we're going to go for... I think we're going to take Wise Master, actually, as our destiny. So like I said, that will be victory points scoring at the end of the game. But of course, this being an Automa, we need an opponent, so let's go up and meet our adversary. Oh, before we do that, actually, we need to take a look at our starting hero card. So our starting hero card, I will put cards in the hand to the left, what I've played over to the right. So I'll bring this cord out of the way. So our first hero card to start the game is Dazzling Wit. Play this before you attempt a challenge, adding an extra charisma or intelligence rune to the attempt. Alright, so like I said, anything that's in my hand is going to the left, anything I've played goes to the right, and that'll count as scoring at the end of the game. Now we can go meet our adversary. Here's our adversary for this playthrough. We're playing against the High Priest. I'll detail more about the priest-specific cards once I go through the generic. So first up, we've got the rules for Rise of the Adversary. When you fail a challenge, the adversary gains an experience. When your result includes this result, either one, the hero plays an anti-hero card, which I've got their deck lined up. If a player ends the game with less than 30 destiny, the adversary gains 2 experience, and that could be bad, because as we see with the solo mode, if the adversary has 5 experience, the adversary wins. So whether it gains experience from the effects on those cards or from failing challenges, we need to try to keep away from 5 experience. Then we'll take a look at the High Priest, our adversary. It's got Mask, 6 Tragedy, and a Wisdom. And you can use either Constitution or Wisdom runes. And we need 8 total successes to get to defeat the High Priest. I'll explain more about how that works when we get into the game. And this is why I passed on Driven to Despair. If a hero has 2 darkness or more, this challenge has +1 difficulty versus that hero. So in other words, that 8 would become a 9, and that's what we would need to clear that. So then we get to look at our quest, the High Priest's Inquisition. Other mask challenges like that have +1 difficulty. If any hero has 3 corruption at the end of the game, the adversary gains 2 experience. And if any hero has 3 what looks like radiant symbols at the end of the game, the adversary loses 2 experience. So really there's no way to get experience off of the High Priest once it gets on there, other than end of game stuff. So we do need to keep an eye on that. But we can also go ahead and zoom out to take a look at our starting quests. I'm just adjusting the light on the left side. The game is played over the course of 3 acts. I've got all 3 starting acts dealt out. For now, we'll only be able to pull from Act 1. So let's go ahead and take a look at our starting quests for Act 1. First up, we have an animal companion, which is actually an ally. You may spend an experience or sacrifice this ally to gain plus Constitution until the end of the turn. Also to note, the ally will actually make whatever challenge you're going for more difficult. So we do need to keep an eye on that. Next up we have Studious. I can only gain this if I have Wisdom or spend an experience, and it's got what looks like a pillar story icon. Not liking that because of the challenge we have. Third up, Escape Your Pursuers, where you can Lost in the Woods is actually the side here, and these are the 2 paths that you have on the challenge. You can either escape your pursuers to get a dexterity, or find a place of power, but you need a +1 on that, which will draw you a hero card and give you another wisdom in your story. And First Love. You may sacrifice this ally to gain to gain corruption and 2 experience. But we need to put this on we need to put one of these allies on the challenge. So I'm going to put Animal Companion on Escape Your Pursuers. And then we need another challenge out here. If this is a quest, I can put the First Love on it. If it's not, I'm going to have to shuffle it back in. So we find Master at Arms, which is another ally, so that'll be getting shuffled back in. Next card up. Foundling, which is a trait, so I can't use that either. I need challenges right now. Here we go. Raging Inferno. You can either try to survive the flames for a Constitution, or heal the wounded for +1, which gives you a Triumph and a Wisdom, but First Love has to go on there. So it's a 4 to clear Survive the Flames, or a 5 to heal the wounded. One more card here. This can be anything. This can be anything but an ally to start the game. Armed Robbery for a 3. So you can either calm your attacker to get a Charisma, or defend your family for a +1 to get the Scale and a Constitution. Now, something I have been glossing over on the challenges is the runes here are what you get to cast for those. So that's a way, so we can potentially use the runes that we've got in our start story to maybe get the stuff we are actually after. So I'll go ahead and shuffle these up. We give these a quick shuffle, then a cut. Driven to Despair can go back to the box. That was the motivation that we didn't pick. All right, and then with that, we're all set to go, so let's go ahead and get into this playthrough. Our selection here really isn't that great to start the game. The only thing that's really calling out to me right now, and it's actually very thematic with a merchant, is an armed robbery to defend the merchant's family. So we'll bring the dice tray into shot. So the way we'll resolve the adventure is you'll have these normal runes to start with. So 2 of them have a slash on them and then are blank. The third one has that arrow symbol with the hero and anti-hero on them. What that means 2 things. First of all, we can draw either a hero or an anti-hero card, but when we roll this based on the Rise of the adversary also plays a hero card. And then there are also, as you might be able to see, I'll tip down for a second, but you can see there are runes of each class type on there. In there as well. So we'll get anything we have in our current story to roll as cast as part of that as well. It's hard to say roll when these are 2-sided. So as I was saying, we're going to calm our attacker. We're going to go for armed robbery, trying to defend our family. So with that in mind, because we have a charisma in the story, we also get one of these runes, and I'll pay an experience to get another charisma rune until the end of the turn, and I put my experience over here. So I do get the charisma rune even though I'm not going on the charisma path. So looking at the class runes, they're a little bit different because you've got the slash on one side and then these flip into a charisma side. Now there's a third level which I actually don't get in this case, where that'll be a guaranteed 2 successes, or that would let you draw an anti-hero card. So in that case, I don't have that. So the way we'll do this is I've got my 5 runes here. I also have an option if I want to cast a dark rune, I can spend an experience to get one of these black runes. So what these are is that'll give you a success, And then that will give you 2 successes, but you also have to move down the... I'll tip back down so I can point it out. You also have to move down the corruption track, the alignment track, I call it. You'll probably hear me use alignment track and corruption track interchangeably. Just know that they basically are one and the same thing. So, with that, since we're defending the family, we need at least 4 successes to clear this. So we'll go ahead and give these a good shake. And then we'll cast them. That looks like 6 successes to me, because we got 4 slashes on here, which that would be enough naturally. And then the class symbol gives me 6. So what that means is I get to put this under my story, and we'll tip down so you can see how I'm doing this. I'll put this down under the origin story with just the relevant parts facing. So now when I attempt Constitution challenges that have the Constitution rune along the left side of the card, now I can add an extra Constitution rune to the roll. So let's tip back up to the adventures, and we need something new. So we'll find... I can enlist in the King's Army, or I can hear the call to arms for a 4 success. Either enlist in the King's Army for a triumph and a strength rune, or defend my homeland to get another one of those scale symbols and another Constitution rune. So, in truth, looking at this, okay, so that's an extra charisma rune. It's an extra charisma or wisdom. So, possibilities, but I think what we're going to go for here... Well, I think I'm actually going to spend an experience here to journey off Escape the Pursuers, because I'm figuring I'm not clearing that in a million years. The only thing that's relevant is the wisdom, but given that it's hidden behind a 5 and I've only got my base 3 runes to get that, I want to cycle that, see if I can get something I can actually use. So we will replace that with... Uncover Forbidden Lore, which is the even worse card. So I can either uncover Hidden Lore to get a Pillar and a Dexterity, or learn Dark Secrets to draw an anti-hero card and gain a Wisdom on my character story. None of these are great, but I guess I will try to enlist... I'll hear the call to arms to defend my homestead. Mostly because I want the 3rd scale and another Constitution rune. So here we'll bring the dice tray into shot. I've got my 3 basic runes. I get a Constitution rune. And here I think I will spend an experience to get a dark rune. Yes, I'm going to risk going down going down the alignment track here. But given that I've got to look ahead to an eventual battle with the High Priest, I think it's kind of worth dipping down the alignment track a little bit here. So I'll go ahead and cast these runes. Alright, I do succeed with 7 successes, but that does bring me down the alignment track. So I do complete Call to Arms, which means I can defend my homeland, which gives me another scale symbol. And then here I'm basically stuck with whatever I get. So coming out of here will be... Cruel Winter. I can either steal to survive, which gives me a tragedy point and the charisma and a dexterity, or forge for food, which gives me a mountain and another constitution. That's a difficulty of 4 to get that, though. Well, my constitution is starting to get pretty well set up at this point, so I think I will... That's a 5, and I'm not likely to clear... Well, I might actually be able to clear that Raging Inferno. The question is, which one do I want? Because if I go for Survive the Flames, that gets me my 3rd Constitution, and I'm done with that. But I also need Wisdom to take on the High Priest. So I won't need the Dark Rune there. Steel to Survive. A Cruel Winter, Foraging for Food could be a backup option. But I do need Wisdom as well for... I do need Wisdom as well for my backstory, for my destiny. So, but I will have at least 5 more. I will need to get at least 5 more cards, so I can probably start gathering Wisdom then. So I think, and the 3 Radiant could be handy if I can keep the First Love. So I think I will actually just go for the Raging Inferno and try to survive the flames. So I get the 2nd Constitution rune. The idea here is, like I said, if I clear this, I'm just done with my Constitution. I've got it maxed out, so then I can focus on getting the Wisdom for the story. So let's go ahead and cast these. I'm facing a difficulty of a 4 because of the First Love there. So let's see what I can do here. All right, that's 3 successes, which actually won't clear it. So let's see but we do have one of these results. So the Anti-Hero card. Play this after another hero has attempted a challenge. They have to attempt it again. So Sabotage actually kind of helps us here. So that's So after we've attempted a challenge, which we have to attempt it again. One, two, three, 4. Actually, before I forget, I do get to I'll draw a hero card, because I definitely want to try to get back up the alignment track again. So here we'll find Unlikely Alliance. Choose another hero to gain light. You can add their runes to the next challenge you attempt this turn. That seems highly useless in the solo game. Heroes that reference okay, so yeah, that should have been set aside. Silly me. Alright, so let's try again on the hero card. So we'll draw another Unlikely Alliance, which will also go away. Let's get something we can actually use. 2nd chance. Face a challenge an opponent just failed. If you succeed, skip your next turn. Since that references an opponent as well, we'll set that aside. Okay, then here, something we can actually use. Inner Strength. Play this before you attempt a challenge. Add an extra Strength or Constitution rune to your attempt. Now, right now we have cleared the challenge, but our adversary may have something to say about that. Let's find out. Dark Lord's Champion. Play this after another hero has attempted a challenge. They must attempt it again, and it now has +1. So now I need a 5 to clear it. Jeez. Which now might be a good time to channel my Inner Strength. So this will give me the last Constitution rune for this attempt. So here we get a guaranteed success, or if we roll that side, we get an experience token. So we'll roll this, we'll cast the runes again. I keep wanting to say roll, but it's hard to roll something that's only got 2 sides to it. Okay, so that's a mountain of successes. So that's 2, 4, 6, 7. I'll draw another hero card, so I will find Narrow Escape. Play this before I attempt a challenge. Add an extra Dexterity or Constitution rune to my attempt. Okay, I'm getting sick of going through this challenge. Can I please keep it this time? Harsh Lesson. If any hero failed to challenge this turn, gain an experience. So I'm not going to end up failing the challenge, thankfully. Which means I actually get this. Which means I actually survive the flame, so that'll go down in the top of the That'll go on the top half, and then first love. So a merchant ventured into the flames to save his first love. But I can sacrifice this ally to gain corruption and two experience, which I obviously don't want to do that if I can help it. But with that, we have 3 cards under our origin, so that's actually the end of Act 1. I will come back, and I'll come back after doing a little bit of setup, and we'll get Act 2 all set. I just left Act 2 I just returned to Act 1 over by the box, so just to get that out of the way. But we need our starting Act 2 cards, so here we'll find an Informant, which is an ally, with a mask and 1 triumph. You may spend an experience or sacrifice this ally to gain plus wisdom until the end of turn. Next up, Street Gang, using Arcane, using Wisdom or Charisma runes. We can either outwit a gang boss for another Scale, 2 Triumph, and a Wisdom, or try to take over the gang with a Mask, a Tragedy, and a Charisma. Remember, because of the High Priest's Inquisition, if we take this path, it'll have +1, so it'll actually be a 6. Next up, the Princess. At the end of the game, which gives you a crown and 3 triumph. At the end of the game, if an adversary is undefeated, sacrifice this ally. And Tragic Loss, which gives you an anti-hero card and 2 tragedy points. If you lost a challenge this turn, you may spend an experience to gain this. So the way we're going to have to do this is we're going to have to put an ally on the outwit a gang boss. Then we're going to have to draw until we get a challenge to put the princess under. So let's see what we get here. Perilous Dungeon, which we can put the princess under. So it'll be a 4 difficulty using Dexterity or Constitution runes. We can either delve into darkness for a tragedy point and a Constitution, or try to escape with treasure to get an anti-hero card and a Dexterity rune. The princess will have to go there. And then once again, as long as this is not an ally, we can start with it. So it's a criminal. You may only gain this if you have a mask or spend experience. That's unfortunate, but right. Well, I can play either one right now, so I think we'll just go into the Perilous Dungeon and try to escape with treasure. So that means we bring the dice tray back into shot. I get the 3 basic runes, and because it's using a Constitution, I get all 3 of my Constitution runes. I'm mostly throwing this in to try to cycle something around. It'll be my luck that I managed to succeed on this, but let's find out. Let's see, so that gives me an experience token. And then because of that cast, then 1, 2, 3, we actually did fail that one. So that means the High Priest will gain an experience token, which I don't completely mind that because it cycles something off. And then we'll replace that with Guard Duty. So I can, using Wisdom and Dexterity, I can either watch over the city to get a crown and a Wisdom, or try to catch a criminal for a +1 difficulty, another Scale, a Triumph, and a Dexterity rune. But okay, I'm not completely heartbroken by that. The question is now, do I want to spend an experience to gain Tragic Loss? I think I do. Yeah, so I'll spend an experience to gain Tragic Loss because I lost a challenge this turn. So that will go under my motivation. And then I need a card to replace that, so I will find Murder Mystery, using Wisdom and Arcane Intelligence. So I can either solve the mystery for another scale, a triumph point, and a wisdom rune, or conceal my crime for a +1 difficulty, which would be +2, masked to tragedy and a wisdom point. So I think, so for the next attempt, okay, so I spent the experience to gain that. I think I will try to I'll try guard duty, and I'll try to watch over the city. I'll also play narrow escape, so I'll play this before I attempt a challenge to add an extra dexterity rune to my attempt. Unfortunately, I don't have one by default in the story, and I don't have an experience to spend to try to gain the dexterity rune, or to try to gain the wisdom. So I do get 1 dexterity rune, which is not great. I'd like to see a little more constitution and wisdom rolls, or wisdom tasks, but there's no help for that at this point. So I need a 4 to clear this. One, two, three. I'll draw a hero card first, so I will draw Divine Favor. Playing this before I attempt a challenge to add an extra wisdom or charisma rune to the attempt. But the adversary will play an anti-hero card from their deck, so they will play Tap into Darkness. Play this as another hero is attempting a challenge. Choose 1 rune of a type you possess and remove it from their attempt. So they actually don't have any runes. That's actually not particularly relevant right now because they don't possess any of the runes I'm using. What is relevant, though, is that I failed again, so they get their second experience. We need to be careful of that, but the cards are just not coming up for us. So we get another experience. I might be looking to journey something here on this turn. So what comes up next? Trench Warfare. I can either, using Strength and Wisdom, I can either lead an attack for a crown, a hero card, and a strength, or tend to the injured for a radiant, a triumph point, and a wisdom rune. And yes, I am going to use my experience to journey off the outwitted gang boss with potentially stealing an informant. So replacing that will be a desert caravan for 4 successes. I can get a constitution and I can use constitution and charisma runes on this one. I can either survive a harsh journey for a mountain and another constitution, or earn a vast fortune for a crown and a charisma. Not the combination I wanted to see. And I'm not really getting much help on any of this. So I guess just to cycle, I'll try to survive a harsh journey. But the problem here is I'm basically, like I mentioned, I'm basically in a situation where I'm doing challenges just to cycle them, and I'm not really making any progress on what my actual character objective is in terms of my story. This is probably going to be a pretty easy one, but it's not, like I said, it's not very helpful in terms of my score. Yeah, so that's 7 successes. I survived the harsh journey after my tragic loss. We'll bring that out a shot. And then we'll find Honorable. I can only gain this if I have a crown or spend experience, which I don't have. So this is actually very, very unfortunate. I don't even have the experience. I don't even have experience to do much with in this turn. So once again, I'm stuck just throwing something at a challenge. Just throwing... Actually, I think I had a charisma there as well that I could have used. Yeah. Just for giggles, I'll cast a charisma rune anyway. But I cleared that with plenty of successes. Yeah, so I got another 2 successes. But that's not helping me make progress right now. This is really not working out for me. Which means I gotta dip into my cards, it looks like. I think my only hope right now is to try to solve a mystery. Is to try to go for murder mystery, try to solve a mystery. And I'm going to have to play both of my cards. So Divine Favor will give me an extra Wisdom rune. And Dazzling Wit will give me another Intelligence rune, which actually is kind of helpful right now. I totally forgot I actually could use Intelligence runes as well. So I get a Wisdom rune, and I need 5 successes if I'm trying to solve a mystery. Let's see, 2, 4, 6, 7 actually, so that worked out. So we solved the mystery, which is our first wisdom into the story, but more importantly, that is the end of Act 2. So, once again, I will turn the camera off so I can do setup on Act 3, and then we'll come back with going through the Act 3 cards and all ready to go. Act 3 is all set up, so let's take a look at the starting cards here. We find, and hopefully a little less on the ally start side, so let's find out what we've got. Ancient Evil. This I might be able to... Ooh. Actually, no, I might be able to work with this. We need 6 to clear it using Wisdom and Intelligence runes. We can either banish the Fiend for 3 Triumph and another Wisdom, or bargain for Power for a mask which will turn the difficulty into 7, 2 Tragedy, and another Intelligence rune. Then a Rogue Elemental, 6 successes using Constitution and Intelligence runes. We can either extinguish the fire for another Mountain, 2 Triumph points, and an Intelligence rune, or Harness Living Flame for an anti-hero card and 3 Tragedy points. Next up, Divine Calling, 5 successes on Light, or on Wisdom, either Champion of Light for 4 Triumph and another Radiant symbol, or Servant of Darkness, which is a +1. The mask will turn it into 7. Draw an anti-hero card and 4 Tragedy points, or Trial of the Magi, 5 successes using Intelligence runes. We can either slay the Archmage for an anti-hero card, 3 Tragedy points, and an Intelligence rune, or become the Archmage with a +1. For the Pillar and 5 Triumph points. Well, I think we'll start. I don't particularly much like any of these to start with, but I think we will... Oh, this is so bad. I could sacrifice the First Love, but that's going to make the High Priest more difficult, and that's not something I'm in love with doing right now. I could if I think I need the experience, but I really don't want to do that. So I think I will try to banish the Fiend. So I think I'll go for Ancient Evil and try to banish the Fiend, which means I get the basic runes, I get an Intelligence, and I get a Wisdom rune. The problem is I need a near-perfect cast on these to get them, and on 5 runes, I don't like my chances of trying to get 6 successes. Color me unsurprised. So Banish the Fiend has failed. The High Priest gets another experience. I get an experience as well. We're probably going to have to use some Dark Runes here, as much as I don't want to. Our next card is Crypt of Horrors for 6, using Dexterity and Wisdom. We can either disarm Deadly Traps for 3 Triumph and a Dexterity, or destroy the Demi-Lich at a +1 difficulty for 4 successes, or 4 Triumph points and a Wisdom rune. Um, hmm. As much as I really don't like this, I think it's the only way we can do this. So we're going to go into the Crypt of Horrors to destroy the Demi-Lich. And sadly, I will sacrifice the First Love ally, which will take me down the corruption track, which means now I'll tip the camera down. Now I can only play anti-hero cards, but unfortunately my hand is empty of them, which will give me 2 more experience. Let's see, so I get the basic runes, a wisdom, which is already in there, and I will spend an experience for a dark rune. I'll have to dip even a little further into corruption. But the way this game's going, I think the High Priest is going to be a challenge anyway. Unless by some miracle we're able to find something that lets us out of the corruption, but I think we're too far past the point of no return on that. So we need a 7 to clear this. I think we have to risk... Do I want to risk a second Dark Rune and go all the way down? We might have to. It's unfortunate, but if we fail this challenge, he's going to end up with 4 experience, and that's probably a dangerous place to be. So, this is so bad. But yeah, I think we have to risk it at this point. I'd say we're not too far from the point of no return at this point. We're probably just losing the game anyway. And we still fail. So first we'll draw an anti-hero card since that's all we can play right now. So we'll find Relentless. Play this after you have attempted a challenge. You may attempt it again, adding a dark rune to the attempt. So that's in the hand, but let's see what comes out of the deck. We find Dark Lord's Champion. Play this after another hero has attempted a challenge. They must attempt it again, and it now has +1. Oh, fantastic. So, I'm pretty sure... Let's see here. Doo-doo-doo. I'm just looking at something here. What I'm double checking is... I think that Dark Runes carry from attempt to attempt, but I'm not completely sure. I'm pretty sure the result happens now, though. I'm not finding that. I think for now... I think for now, but I'll look it up. I'm going to rule... This is actually going to be a big problem, because this is actually a pretty big ruling, so... This one I'm actually going to pause the video to look up. The reason I'm going to pause is because if the result happens now, I probably would fail it the first time, and if the Dark Runes don't carry over, then if the Dark Runes don't carry, then I'm probably just going to end up losing the game. So I've got to pause here and look up a ruling on this one. So I will be right back. Sorry for the delay on the video. I had to look up a ruling. Normally I would just house rule it for the... Normally I just rule it for the video and then keep rolling. The problem is this was too big, this was too important of a result. So everything there happens immediately. So I still draw the card, they played their card. I do go down the corruption track, which loses me 4 triumph points, but I don't get the success or the failure yet. So I'll cast these again. So I cast these runes again. We're still facing a 7 to try to clear this. Which that is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We did even worse somehow. So we draw another anti-hero card. We draw... Bend the rules. Play this during a challenge you're attempting. Choose 1 rune and flip it over. I don't think flipping anything would help me here. Actually, would it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, it wouldn't, because that's still a 7 I need to pass. And let's see what we got from the adversary deck. Instill Fear. Play this as another hero is attempting a challenge. They must choose another challenge or trait instead. Delightful. So I don't even get the opportunity to cast Dark Runes anymore because I've gone so far down the track. Great. Well... At this point, I think it's just... I think we go for a Rogue Elemental and try to harness Living Flame, mostly to get cards. So the Wisdom goes away. I get all 3 of my Constitution runes. I get an Intelligence, an Intelligence rune. And I need a 6 to clear this. Actually, yeah, I need a 6 to clear this either way. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. We're doing this again. 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. Actually, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can't do first grade math, apparently. We'll draw an anti-hero card, so we will draw... Relentless. Play this after you've attempted a challenge. You may attempt it again, adding a dark rune to the attempt. So, just to tip back down on the camera, just to tip back down to the board, you can see here a note where when I'm this far down down the alignment track, I can't even cast dark runes anymore. This is a card that explicitly says you can. So we'll tip back up and we'll see what's coming out of the adversary's deck. So the adversary is playing... another Instill Fear, so I've got to attempt another challenge. Delightful. Right. Well, that brings us back to... Actually, I think that brings us to Champion of Light, but we're in a very tough situation on that one. Actually, we're in a pretty tough situation for this entire game because we can't seem to get out of our own way. So that gives me the Champion of Light. So that's actually a Wisdom rune that I get. Not the special one, unfortunately. I need a 5 to clear it. So I'm going for Divine Calling to become a Champion of Light. Of course not. So we'll draw this. We'll draw an anti-hero card and we'll find Desperate Rage. For each tragedy in my story, gain +1 to my next challenge attempt this turn. Alright, and then we'll play another card from the adversary's deck. We'll play Cruel Betrayal. Choose any hero to sacrifice an ally. But, of course, there are no allies out, so I fail the challenge, because of course I do. And it's the 4th experience for the High Priest, and I get an experience as well, which I may be using to try to journey something off. So here we'll find Imprisoned. Using Dexterity and Constitution runes, I can either plot my revenge, for a scale, 2 tragedy points, and another constitution rune, or escape to freedom at +1 difficulty, which would give me 4 triumph points and a dexterity rune. Well, since I can't even spend experience for dark runes anymore, I'll spend an experience and journey slay the Archmage, or journey trial of the Magi. So we will replace that with a demon horde for 7 successes. I can either drive back a demon army for 4 triumph points and a wisdom rune, or, if this wants to focus, wield the sun's light for a radiant, 3 triumph points, and a strength rune. Oh, joy. Well, let's go back to trying to extinguish the fire once again. So I need to keep an eye on Bend the Rules, because I can use that to flip a rune over, and I might have to. So the wisdom goes away. All 3... Yeah, we'll harness living flame. So all 3 constitution, an intelligence, and we'll see what we can do here. One more fail and the High Priest wins. So let's see what we get here. I'll actually bring the trade down a little bit more into shot. Let's see, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think that's just a special 2 successes, isn't it? Yes. Okay, so we've extinguished living flame. So we've harnessed living flame. Which means I'll draw another anti-hero card. So I will draw. Oop, that should be the other way. Fateful choice. If I choose a tragedy path this turn, I gain +1 to the attempt. But if I choose a triumph path, I gain a light on the alignment track. So, new card here I find. Supernatural. I can only gain this card if I have a Constitution and a Charisma in my story, or if I've played 3 anti-hero cards. And it's worth another mountain and 3 tragedy points. I know there are names for those. I know there are special names for those story icons. Okay, so the sunburst that we've been seeing is divinity, scales are justice, mountains nature, the pillars arcana, the crown is royalty, and the mask is villainy. Oh, joy. This is really bad. I think here we have to spend our last experience to journey off the... Where are we going to journey off here? We're going to journey the Crypt of Horrors. And this is going to be what we're stuck with unless I want to just take Supernatural, which I might do. We'll find Assassin's Guild, 5 successes, and I can only use dexterity runes. I either destroy the assassins for 4 triumph points and a dexterity rune, or take over the guild at +1 difficulty and get 6 tragedy points. So I will take Supernatural to give me another nature point, and I can take this because I've got Charisma and Constitution in my story. So I will do it there. I very much made a mess of my destiny, but I do have one last showdown here, so I'll shut the camera off once again, and I'll bring the High Priest back into shot. Okay, so we are facing the High Priest, which means that intelligence rune actually goes away. We won't get that. We'll get our basic runes, all 3 Constitution, and a wisdom rune, because we only have 1 wisdom in story. But we do have a couple of cards that I can use for... Yeah. Let's see. And then I'll actually play Desperate Rage here. So for each tragedy in my story, I get... Actually, let me bring this into shot. So Desperate Rage, for each tragedy in my story, I gain +1 to my next challenge attempt this turn. So I'm going to get +3 in my Desperate Rage. And I've got a couple of cards I can use in hand. Actually, I'll play Fateful Choice as well. Since I'm choosing a tragedy path, well, I'm actually taking a tragedy path anyway, I get a +1. I got another +1, which means I've already got a 4 against a... I've already got 4 successes against a challenge difficulty of a 9, because I've got two darkness on the corruption track. So we'll cast these and hopefully get a decent roll out of it. We'll bring that into shot, so I get another 8 successes, but I'll draw an anti-hero. Actually, instead what we'll do is I'll play Bend the Rules. So I'll play this during a challenge I'm attempting, which this technically is a challenge. Actually, I should be able to play this. Must be spent facing the adversary. So they're calling it an adversary challenge. So yeah, it looks like I will get to use Bend the Rules there, which means I'll flip this rune that's been playing cards out of the anti-hero deck into just a regular slash. Which means I'll clear that. I'll clear the High Priest, but we are at end of game, so I don't have 3 Radiant in my story, which means the High Priest gains 2 experience. And yeah, that's it. So I did end up losing the game, but let's total up the score anyway so we can see how bad it is. So I've got my score sheet here. I'll score triumph points first. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but I lose 4 because of my alignment on the alignment track, so I'm at a net of 1. Any tragedy? Let me tip down here so we can see what I'm looking at. So once again, just to explain the triumph scoring, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but I lost 4 because of my alignment on the alignment track. Actually, that should be 6 because I did end up getting 2 wisdom, actually 7. So I'm going to end up with a net of 3 because I did have 2 wisdom in my story. So that'll be a net of 3. Let's see, tragedy, 2, 5, 8, 14. Oh wait, they count... Okay, they count the cards separately. So 1, 2, 3. So that's actually a -1. I forgot there's a section on here where it counts your cards separately. Experience, I didn't have any. Now triumph cards, 1, 2, 3, 4. Tragedy cards, or anti-hero cards, I had 3. Story icons, I believe it's 2 for 2, 3 for 4, 4 plus for 8. So I had 1, 2, 3, 4 justice runes for 8, plus 2 mountain for 2, so a total of 10 points on story icons. Let's see, 24, 28, 31, 30. So the High Priest doesn't get another 2 experience from the Rise of the Adversary quest, but I still lose the game because I had 6 experience. But the last part of this is the story, so I will have to have a think. So I'm going to turn the camera off, take a couple minutes to think, and then I will try to tell something resembling trying to tell something of a story here with this character. So shut the camera off and let's see what I can come up with. I think I've at least got to start to the story, so we'll see how everything flows. Remember, we're starting with a male human ranger, so keep that in mind as I'm going through the story. So our story starts with our human ranger discovering that setting up in a forested town of Callus as a merchant selling pelts from his hunts. It didn't take long, though, before he discovered that his family was under attack. From an armed robber. So he had to defend his family one night. After that, he discovered that it had been part of a series of robberies. So he put out a call to arms to defend the homestead from this series of robbers. Eventually, the battle took them to a far-off land, where they defeated the robbers and their masters. But when they came back, the ranger discovered to his horror that his hometown of Callus was in flames. He ventured back into the flames and managed to survive them, saving his first love from the kiss of flames. He did have a natural talent as a leader, which he'd harnessed earlier in the call to arms to defend the homestead. Unfortunately, his call didn't extend to being able to save his first love, as he suffered a tragic loss from losing his first love, having to sacrifice her to survive his harsh journey across the desert. So he had to sacrifice her to survive the journey across the desert. Until he eventually set up again and found himself trapped in the middle of a mystery, until he found somebody murdered in his embrace one night. Until he found somebody murdered in town one night. He set out to solve the mystery, finally managing to do so despite having to dip into corruption. Now, he next found himself exploring far and wide, since his last couple of homes had been destroyed. So he encountered a rogue elemental where he harnessed living flame from that, but that had given him some supernatural power. Eventually, he found his way back to the remnants of Callus, where the high priest that had tutored him was waiting for him. He finally defeated the high priest, but discovered that its corruption had been too much for him. So in his despair, he went back to the temple that he'd learned from the high priest in, and he realized inside the temple that he'd corrupted his destiny to be a wise master of his people. So in despair, his final act of penance was to slit his own throat. As he went through his final story, breathed his last, he realized that he'd screwed up his entire life and never lived up to his potential. The end. I know it's not the best story in the world, but on 5 minutes notice and with these prompts, that's kind of what I came up with. So that will do it for this playthrough of Call to Adventure. I alluded to another game earlier that you could use in combination with this to build up a character for a tabletop RPG. That game is Role Player, and I might get that on the channel at some point. Maybe as a 2-night event. Go through Role Player for that, and then this to build the backstory for the character. But we'll have to see how that all plays out. But Sunday, so the next video is coming up. Sunday we'll finish Pandemic Month with World of Warcraft, Wrath of the Lich King Pandemic, and next week we'll step back into the background campaign for Hero Realms. As for Mystical Munchies, that episode will probably come out. That episode may come out early this week, because as of now, I'm slated to be off from work on Friday, so I may get the next episode of Mystical Munchies, which will be the last recipe out of the Dungeon Meister cookbook, Spencer's Minty Discs, aka Melted Mint Cookies. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care, everyone.